Freedom begins in the mind. This is Jeff Buckled, and today on Duck and Cover Ministries, we'll be discussing the freedom of the mind. The first step to freedom is that the individual must be free to think whatever they want. I'm not even talking about the freedom to believe whatever you want. We haven't even really reached that level yet. I'm merely saying that we should be able to be free to think about, examine, question all things, including various beliefs. You may say, my point is meaningless. You may feel that every person who has ever lived was free to think whatever they wanted. But I would argue that this view is rather naive. Your thought life can be manipulated and even controlled by limiting your access to information and facts or opposing views. If all you're exposed to is one side of an argument, then it limits your ability to think in other terms. In order to think freely, one needs as much access as possible to all the resources about facts and information and arguments that one wishes to pursue. Therefore, a nation which valued freedom would teach its citizens to think by exposing the students to as many views and beliefs as reasonably possible. Such a wide variety of philosophies and worldviews would equip the students to be better able to be responsible for themselves, because it would make them better at thinking for themselves. The downside of this is that the nation which values free thinking will not in any way have a homogeneous belief system. There will be a plurality of beliefs because everyone is free to choose their own paths and their own views. This means that if you want to push a certain political agenda, you will have an uphill battle. Now, if you want to limit people to one system, then you must limit their exposure to competing ideas during the educational process. I can illustrate my point by discussing traditional martial arts. For decades, martial arts had a huge, unbridgeable divide. That is, a martial arts artist would learn striking or grappling, but rarely both. The karate practitioner, which involves striking, was never exposed to grappling, and therefore they tended to think that grappling was a weaker form of martial arts. Meanwhile, the jiu-jitsu practitioner, which involves grappling, never learned strikes, and therefore he thought striking was inferior to grappling. It was not until the West embraced martial arts and began to expose the students to both aspects of martial arts that people really discovered the necessity of both skills. There is value in both grappling and striking, but one does not see the value in the other if one is never exposed to the other. Now, if you've never taken martial arts before and know nothing about it, you may say, well, duh. It just makes sense that learning both is essential. But this is because you have not been indoctrinated in rigid traditional martial arts. They basically forbid their students from trying other forms of martial arts. And this was done to control students so that they wouldn't leave. Those who attain the highest ranks in martial arts are called masters or grand masters. Westerners assume this is because they have mastered martial arts techniques. But in actuality, this term is a holdover from the old Asian feudal system. The master of the school is the Lord, and the students are his serfs. The serfs are not allowed to leave the Lord, so the Lord must limit their exposure to other forms of martial arts that might actually be a better fit for the student, but that would lure the student away. Now, my point is not to have a drawn-out discussion about martial arts. My point is that limiting people's exposure to competing ideas has two effects. One, it limits a person's ability to self-determination. And this leads to two, which is limiting others' exposure to various views and ideas is ideal if your goal is to control people. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this was thought-provoking. Please like and subscribe. Until next time, to God be the glory.